So for this video, I wanted to do an episode of the 10 most intimidating and most feared pitchers in the 90s. I'm just going to go ahead, get straight to the list, and I'll explain about each player. So starting off as the 10th most intimidating, most feared pitcher in the 90s, Armando Benitez. Now I know Armando Benitez, he had his problems in the postseason. I'm sure Mets fans want to forget about him, but he was such a fireballer pitcher. I remember, I think it was on like This Week in Baseball, they showed Armando Benitez in a clip hitting 100 miles per hour and lit up on the scoreboard in Baltimore, and the fans went crazy. He was like one, I know pitchers threw 100 miles an hour earlier before Benitez, but he was like the first one where it really came to me because of This Week in Baseball segment. Armando Benitez, he was also labeled as kind of like a hothead. There was a time where he gave a home run to Bernie Williams, and on the very next pitch, he drilled Tino Martinez in the back, and then a big brawl ensued. So put Armando Benitez at number 10. At number 9, Jeffnelson. Now, Jeffnelson, he was 6'8". He was an interesting pitcher because like everything he threw, it just moved so much. It seemed like every pitch he threw was a slider. They talk about Mariano Rivera, how he was like a one-pitch pitcher. He just threw cut fastball. It seemed like Jeffnelson was that way. It seemed like every pitch was a slider, but he did have some fastballs with a lot of movement. But anyways, like I said, Jeffnelson, right-handers just had such a hard time hitting him. He came at like different angles. He had kind of like a strange or unique delivery. So put Jeffnelson at number 9. Now at number 8, I'm going to go with Kerry Wood. Now Kerry Wood, he only played one season in the 90s. That was the 1998 season. And during that season and during his fifth career start against the Houston Astros, he struck out 20 Astros. Just an amazing performance. Just a tremendous performance. And in that game, Kerry Wood, he just had such like a nasty breaking pitch. But Kerry Wood, very intimidating. There was the comparisons to him and Nolan Ryan. He just threw extremely hard, and he looked tough. He looked strong on the mound there. He was also a bit wild. He walked many batters. But Kerry Wood, I got at number 8. At number 7, Nolan Ryan. Now, Nolan Ryan, one of the most intimidating pitchers ever. I put him here because in the 90s, he was kind of like in his 40s, mid-40s. His last season in baseball is 1993. He was 46 that year, but he would still go ahead and brush back batters and intimidate hitters. I remember like there was a segment, I tried to find this interview, but I could not find it. Gary Sheffield was talking about how he hit a double off Nolan Ryan, and Nolan Ryan, I forgot, he like either like stared him down at second base or threatened to hit him the next time. I forgot, but Nolan Ryan, he had that aura being very intimidating on the mound. What might be most known about Nolan Ryan in the 90s was the 1993 brawl with the Chicago White Sox. Real quick, the story about that is that GREGORY of the White Sox, known as a Little Hurt, he had a home run in spring training. And what happened is Nolan Ryan took a note of that. He was in the dugout at the time. But then during the regular season, Nolan Ryan gave up a home run to Grayback. Then Nolan Ryan, I think on the next time Grayback was up, Nolan Ryan hit Grayback. And that kind of started like a beanball brawl there in the early 90s between the Rangers and the White Sox that led up to this 1993 brawl with Robbie Montero and Nolan Ryan. So Nolan Ryan, number 7. At number 6, Dave Stewart. All I gotta say is that stare. That stare of Dave Stewart was intimidating. And he was tough on the mound, a tremendous postseason pitcher. I really liked him on the A's, but I didn't like him on the Blue Jays. That's just because in the 1993 ALCS, Dave Stewart was really good against the White Sox. But Dave Stewart, with that stare, I put him number 6. At number 5, Roger Clemens. Now, Roger Clemens, like Nolan Ryan, he had a reputation of brushing batters back, throwing inside, wasn't scared to throw inside. He was also very gritty, very mean on the mound, very tough on the mound. One of his one memorable meltdown that he had, 1990 ALCS against the Oakland A's, bottom of second inning, he was cursing out the home plate umpire for some questionable calls. And Roger Clemens, like I said, he was really chewing him out, and then he wound up getting ejected. He was also wearing eye black during that game. I think the first and only time I ever saw a pitcher wear eye black during a game. So Roger Clemens, number 5. Number 4, Pedro Martinez. He had the reputation of being a headhunter. I saw this in a Sports Illustrated article. In his 23 starts with Montreal in 1994, he was ejected in 12 of those games, and that led to, I guess, 3 brawls. But yeah, Pedro Martinez, number 4, had the reputation to be a headhunter. Of course, he could throw hard with a lot of movement, and he had some nasty secondary pitches, so I put Pedro Martinez at number 4. At number 3, Kevin Brown. Now, if you want, Kevin Brown, number 3. If I had to name the player who was the most intense, most competitive, I would say Kevin Brown. Kevin Brown, he was so intense, like Rangers management when Kevin Brown was on the Rangers management wanted Kevin Brown to kind of tone down his intensity, but Kevin Brown, he was just intense. He was so competitive on the mound. 3 times led the league in hits batsmen. Kevin Brown, I remember I see him when a catcher came out to talk to him, like after a couple balls. He was not too happy this catcher came out. He wanted his catcher to get right back behind the plate. Kevin Brown's delivery, his pitch motion also unique. He'd go ahead, he'd look away, then he was about to, his pitching delivery was unique. He would kind of like turn his body and then kind of look away, and when he was getting ready to throw, he'd look in and zoom in at the catcher and home plate. And Kevin Brown, he wasn't scared to throw inside. He was intense. I also heard something that supposedly when he hit batteries, he'd also stare at them also after hitting them. But Kevin Brown, a tremendous pitcher, a lot of movement on his pitches. He threw hard, number 3. Number 2, Rob Dibble. I put him here. Unpredictable. There's something unique in his head. I guess somewhat crazy, out of his mind. He would throw in the high 90s, would maybe hit 100, had that huge leg kick. He'd throw at some hitters. He went after his manager, Lou Piniella. There's a time when Doug DeCenzo put a suicide squeeze on him. Rob Dibble, besides throwing to first base, he threw it at Doug DeCenzo, who's running up the first baseline. Rob Dibble, I remember watching when I was young. It's like, he was probably the one pitcher where I'd be like, okay, I'm glad I'm not a hitter. Where I kind of, I guess, I was scared for the hitters. Felt that fear for hitters when Rob Dibble was pitching. And number 1, the most intimidating, most feared pitcher in the 90s, the Duke. Harry Doyle once said that the Duke once threw at his own kid during the father-son game. Okay, I'm not going to use anyone from Major League or from a movie, but the number 1 most intimidating pitcher, most feared pitcher in the 90s was in the movie Little Big League, and that's Randy Johnson. Simply said, 6'10", he was mean. I don't think, him and Kevin Brown, I don't think I ever saw them smile at all. Buck Showalter, I remember him saying that Randy Johnson's not this cuddly, nice guy. And he looked mean on the mound. 6'10", he could throw hard 100 miles per hour, and he was intimidating, especially for left-handed hitters. So that's the list. Those are the 10 most intimidating, most feared pitchers in the 90s. Thank you so much. I'll go through the list one more time. Number 10, Armando Benitez. Number 9, Jeffnelson. Number 8, Kerry Wood. Number 7, Nolan Ryan. Number 6, Dave Stewart. Number 5, Roger Clemens. Number 4, Pedro Martinez. Number 3, Kevin Brown. Number 2, Rob Dibble. And number 1, Randy Johnson. Thank you so much for your interest in this video. Go ahead, comment. I'm sure there are many who probably disagree with this list, but thank you so much for your interest. I'm thankful that I can go ahead and present this to you. Go ahead, Go ahead, like, subscribe, share, and thank you so much for all support, and thank you. The 10 most intimidating, most feared pitchers in the 90s.